Okay. A theme in a book is when something gets repeated and repeated and repeated. And teachers will assign kids to check out themes and talk about themes and think about themes. But I think they don't really always tell you why. And I think one of the things that is very important about finding a theme and what is repeated in a book is it's a way of thinking about something really deeply. That it gets repeated not to be obnoxious or to bore us, but to look at different sides of this one thing that gets repeated, or two things, or three things, but whatever. Themes are things that are repeated in a book over and over to make us think more deeply about what's in there. And it's not to just get useless details, but to come up with something that really can help you as a human being. Something that's really truthful, that really might help your life that you hadn't thought about before. And when we're trying to teach literacy here, being good with letters, but we're also embracing literature and interpreting characters as a way to kind of teach you about how to learn about life and what is something important in life. So you see this above me, there's a quote. And this is one of the themes, and this is going to come across today when we're reading, and it's something that get repeated. And again, it has to do, we've been said very clearly, there's a super strong theme of redemption, being saved, happening over and over again. And then with redemption, there's also they talk about heaven. Is heaven redemption? Is Arthur's dad in heaven? Anyway, before I get too lost, I wanted to bring that up because I keep talking about themes, and you might be wondering why. Why? It's because for us to really learn about life through literature. All right. Page 88, chapter 19. Officer Billy was right about one thing. Arthur discovered. Despite having the least sweet personality of anybody he knew, she made awfully good caramel corn. And she was also right about another thing. Christmas is a really tough season. The one bright spot that was his mom got the receptionist job. The dentist called a few days just before Christmas and told her she could start in January. After his mom got off the phone with the new boss, she sat down on the kitchen floor and she started crying into a dish towel because she was so happy. She could provide for her family, That's what she told Arthur when he came running into the kitchen to check if she was okay. She was crying because she was happy. Something he gave up trying to figure out his mom. Sometimes he gave up. Yeah, okay. Christmas Day was a different story. It had been up to Arthur. He would have pulled the covers over his head and pretended it was a regular day. But Barbara and his mom were counting on him. So when Barbara poked him in the arm at about 6 o'clock and whispered loudly in his ear that Santa had been there, he managed to say, "Good. Let's see," in a fake excited voice. He followed his sister's polka dot robe downstairs. "Merry Christmas, guys," Arthur's mom said extra cheerfully as they came to the living room. She put on bright pink lipstick even though it was 6 in the morning and nobody else was around. White Christmas was playing on the record player. It's a famous Christmas song. The air smelled faintly of burnt cinnamon rolls. And White Christmas refers to snow. I mean, it's obviously not a tasteful song to play when we're focusing so much on being heard around Black Lives Matter. Thank you. Arthur could tell his mom was trying to make Christmas nice for them, but it seemed strange. Like they were actors in a play, or aliens on a planet that looked exactly like their own, but it wasn't. Barbara squealed as she tore open her gifts of baby dolls and paper dolls and Barbie dolls and more dolls than Arthur could be bothered to pay attention to, quite frankly. He had already been warned about the gifts, how there wouldn't be many of them and most of them would be for Barbara. Money was still tight. She hadn't started working a new job yet, He handed his mother a small gift that he wrapped for her. "Here, Mom." "For me?" "It's nothing, Mom, really." His mom opened the tissue paper slowly inside, and there was a small metal flower pot in the shape of a watering can. "It's a flower pot." He said it to her just in case she didn't get it. "I know what it is, but you shouldn't have spent money to buy me anything. Not this year, not with everything that's happened. I'm fine with nothing." "It's okay. Wasn't much." The truth was, it was free. He found it the same Saturday he had found the mirror. It had been stuck in a trash can with a bunch of broken clay pots and garden stuff. The silver spout was what he spotted first. Once he managed to pull out the rest of it, Arthur knew it would make the perfect gift for his mom. She'd always kept a row of African violets on the kitchen windowsill. African violets are really beautiful flower. They're furry. They're a little bit difficult to grow. I remember when I grew up on the East Coast, they were really popular. People would try to grow them. You could grow them on your heater in the winter. That's what's up. He was pretty proud of how it had turned out, too. He had glued the shaky handle back into place, and he polished the metal with some of his dad's chrome polish. It looked brand new. It was the person who had thrown out the flower pot and could see how nice it looked now. Arthur was sure they would have kept it. It's funny how Arthur's dad keeps creeping back into these things. His chrome polish is what helped make a Christmas present for his mom. And you remember in the last chapter, I'm still thinking about that he had wondered if his dad had made it into heaven. Did his dad get redemption? Is Arthur living his dad's redemption? I'll stop. Okay. Well, thank you, said his mom. However much it was, I love it. And she gave him a big squeeze. As it turned out, Arthur's mom surprised him with a gift, too. She handed him a flat box wrapped in green paper. When he opened it, he found his dad's silver dollar collection. 6 mint condition piece dollars displayed in a black frame. I saved these for you. I know your dad wanted you to have them, Arthur. A thick lump rose in Arthur's throat as he remembered looking at these silver coins with his dad. He had taken them to the elementary school a bunch of times for show and tell. He had written a research report about them in 3rd grade called All About Money. His dad had often said, one day when I'm gone, I'm going to pass them on to you. Now that he had them, Arthur didn't actually really want them. Not now or ever. And I got something for you too, Arthur. Open it, Barbara said when she flopped on the sofa next to him. She shoved a roundish package coat with way more tape in his hands. It's a baseball. Did you guess? Thanks, Barbara. That's really nice. He tossed the ball in the air and caught it. It's perfect. I bought it with my own allowance money, Arthur, she said super proudly. I've been saving all year. Later, when his mom and Barbara were busy doing dishes in the kitchen, Arthur went upstairs and put the baseball on top of the dresser. He shoved the coins in the back of his closet. It was weird how much these dollars bothered him. He wasn't sure why. His father's motorcycle cap and coat had been in the downstairs closet. They hadn't bothered him at all. In a way, they made him feel as if his dad was still there. But the coins made his throat clench up the moment he looked at them. Arthur knew his mom was just trying to make up for what had happened in November. He knew she still blamed herself for some of it, even though he had tried to tell her it wasn't her fault. She was the one who had lost her cool and somehow hit somebody with a brick. It made Arthur realize how you couldn't always know what things would be important to people and how his mom, and what wouldn't. How his mom had thrown out his dad's motorcycle cap, thinking it didn't matter, but it was way more important to Arthur than the silver coins. And the flower pot had been worthless to somebody in Mr. Hampton's neighborhood, but it had turned out to be the perfect Christmas gift for his mom. In other words, there's a lot of reasons why people decided to save things and why they threw other ones away. Reasons that might not make sense until you dug much deeper, which Arthur thought might be a small clue to the junk man's list. So, the theme of redemption, I feel like he's talking about when an object is important to somebody, it gets saved, like these people. And the objects maybe save people in return, but you're not going to know why until you dig deeper into their lives. You can't save somebody or yourself until you dig deeper into their lives. Just to get out of the house. Oh, rolling into chapter 20. Page 93, chapter 20. Just to get out of the house, Arthur took a walk to Mr. Hampton's garage on Saturday that Christmas. It was one of those deceptively sunny but frigid end of December days. Arthur's breath made clouds. The snow-covered sidewalks crunched like icebergs beneath his feet. He passed an older guy who was making his dog wearing a ridiculous sweater. Arthur normally didn't wave to people, but since it was just after Christmas and they were the only ones around, it seemed like the right thing to do. My wife knitted it, the guy said, waving back. Arthur smiled politely. He wasn't sure if he had what he had hoped to find at the garage when he got there, or why he even felt the need to go there. And all during the 2 weeks off. It wasn't as if Officer Billy would deduct an hour for his probation for visiting the garage, but the curiosity about what Mr. Hampton had been doing got the better of him, because he realized, for reasons, you have to dig for reasons much deeper to understand what is important to somebody and why not. So he's starting to dig. Officer Billy said the guy was going away for the Christmas holidays, but Arthur didn't believe it. A trash picker didn't seem like the kind of person who would take vacations off or have a regular family somewhere. It seemed more like he wanted to work at the garage without being bothered. Arthur figured if he stopped by unexpectedly, he might get a glimpse of what he was up to. The purpose of the 7 most important things still bugged him. He wanted to see what else he could find out. Of course, the walk turned out to be a complete waste of time. The garage was locked up and looked as deserted as always. The grocery cart sat in its usual place outside the garage door with its wheels buried in clumps of snow. Maybe Officer Billy had been right. It didn't seem like anybody had been around the place for days. Groovy Jim's shop was dark and closed up too. There was a folding iron gate across the doorway, which made the place look a lot more unfriendlier than it did, and a handwritten sign that said, "Back next year." It took Arthur a minute to figure out the sign meant he'd be back in just a few days when the new year arrived. Not in 365 days. Since there was nobody around and nothing to see, he shoved his hands in his pockets and walked home, feeling like a cold idiot. When Arthur returned home, he found Barbara sitting in the middle of the living room floor, munching on a sugar cookie. She was wearing her pink plaid coat. Crumbs were everywhere. "What are you doing? Where's Mom?" "She went next door to borrow something. I was playing outside and then I got hungry, so I came in." "Oh, and I talked to a friend of yours, too." "To your friend, too." Arthur stopped pulling off his boots. "What friend?" He didn't have any friends. Not since his dad's accident and being in juvie. Even before that, he hadn't had a lot of friends. He wasn't the kind of person who hung out in big groups. He had one friend, Ben Branson, who lived a few doors down the street, but he moved away at the end of 5th grade. They used to play kickball together and trade baseball cards, but not anymore. He still had a couple of his Roger Maris cards that were worth something. "Was Ben back here? Who did you talk to?" Despite being good friends, they never bothered to write anymore. "No, your friend with the shopping cart, you know?" Barbara said impatiently. "That old man you threw that thing at, but now you're friends with again. That's who." Arthur stared at his sister. What in the world was she talking about? "The junk man, Mr. Hampton. He was here?" Oh, wrong voice. Arthur's voice, not Barbara's voice. "The junk man, Mr. Hampton, he was here?" Barbara nodded and took another bite of her cookie. "Well, he didn't have that cart with him, but I knew it was with him. And when I saw him I knew it was him. And when I saw him across the street, I waved and said, 'Hi, mister.' And he came over and he shook my hand and he said, 'Merry Christmas.' Barbara stuck out her hand to demonstrate. See, like this. So I said, 'Merry Christmas,' too. And I told him how you were my brother and how you weren't bad anymore now." She smiled proudly. "And I said how you had promised not to throw anything else again. Wasn't that nice of me, Arthur?" Arthur couldn't believe what he was hearing. It seemed like way too bizarre of a coincidence that he'd been trying to find out more about the junk man, and maybe at the same time the junk man had been trying to find out more about him. Oh, and I also asked him if his kids got a lot of stuff from Santa for Christmas, and he said he didn't have any kids. Isn't that sad? Barbara gave an exaggerated frown. But he said it was okay. He likes being by himself. Arthur shook his head. How could his sister have found out more about the junk man in 5 minutes of blabbering than he had? "What else did he tell you, Barbara?" He pretended not to seem too interested in the conversation so his sister wouldn't clam up. "Well, he told me he doesn't live in our neighborhood. He lives in 3 little rooms in a building far away, and I asked him why he always pushes a shopping cart, and he said it isn't a shopping cart. It's a chariot." "But you don't see any horses." "Isn't that funny, Arthur? A chariot, but you just can't see the horses." Oh, my God. You don't know things are important to people until you dig deeper. The shopping cart, it's his chariot. "And the best part of all is he gave me this pretty silver bead to keep." And she held out her hand. And there, in his sister's pink mitten, was the missing silver temperature knob from the toaster he had found on his first run. That is page 97, and we'll pause there. We're going to do more writing with quotes about the 7 most important things and start exploring places in the book that speak to this theme. And maybe you will come up with some other themes. And again, a theme is something that just gets repeated in the book more and more so that we think about it. Thank you for your time today. And we'll be picking up reading on Monday.